This is the Local Real Estate Developer Podcast, where we share the stories of locals across the country who took that empty lot or that old building and turned it into something awesome that their community needs. I'm Christine Kandel, and I've been a real estate developer my entire career. My co-host Raphael is a commercial broker, and together we're sharing the stories of locals making a huge impact on their communities. And what we've learned is you don't need millions in the bank or decades of experience to get started. You just need the confidence, tools, and the right people around you. This podcast is your chance to gain the confidence to get in the game, because real estate development isn't just for the insiders anymore. It's for people like you too.
Welcome to the Local Real Estate Developers Podcast. I'm your host, co-host Raphael. I am a commercial broker and commercial investor here located in Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm here with my co-host, Kristi, who's an all-star developer and someone who really is passionate about helping people take on their first and really subsequent commercial real estate development projects. So Kristi, it's always great to see you.
Yes, great to see you. Yeah, and as you said, I'm a developer, mentor, consultant, and I really am focusing now on teaching locals how to become developers in their own community. And today we have on a special guest who is a transformational mindset coach. And when we think about development, there's so many facets to it that are complex and challenging, and that we need to be mentally tough and strong as we're getting into and going through a project. So we thought it would be a good time to just bring on an expert and maybe get some tips out there and share some tools with you. So as you're getting started and as you're working through your deal, you have something to rely on. So Christine, welcome to the show.
Yes. Hi. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So can you maybe give some background on how you got to here and became, and what your why was for becoming a coach? Because clearly you saw a need. So maybe some background on that.
Yes, absolutely. So, as you said, I'm a transformational mindset coach. I am more specifically a neuro coach. And the reason that I got into this field is because about 10, 11 years ago, I started a magazine. And when you start a magazine, much like starting to develop real estate, you're creating something from nothing. And in that field, I noticed a difference in the actions that people took to make their magazine flourish. So there was a big difference between someone who had a very flourishing magazine with 60 pages and tons of advertisers and a lot of great content versus someone who kind of was always around, a 20-page publication and just not flourishing and not making the money that they wanted to make. And so I started coaching within that franchise. I had a franchise. And so I started coaching within that franchise and tried to help the individuals who wanted to make more money, but really couldn't get out of their own way, and realized it was all mindset. It was all what was going on between the ears, of what's going on in your mind about what's possible for you to create. And this is, going back to, this aligns with real estate. What's possible for you to create in your community? If you don't believe that it's possible and you don't necessarily believe in that you have what it takes, then a person will always self-sabotage. They'll get in their own way. They won't take the steps. They won't create the activity. They won't move forward, like climb up that ladder one step at a time to make sure that they get to the top and they get to finally manifest and create and bring into the world the vision that they have for, in this case, in their community. In the case, from 11 years ago, it was, a thriving publication. So to create something from nothing there's a certain thought process, and there's mindset blocks that we need to overcome in order to do that.
No, I couldn't agree more. And to your point, I mean, although they are two different things, I feel like the mindset piece of whether or not it's taking on a development project or starting a new venture like your magazine, there's a lot of similarities there. So maybe we can unpack, that thought process of what made you decide to push through or to get into that space, and how you had to overcome some of those challenges, maybe and maybe you didn't have those challenges, but I'm assuming, like any entrepreneur, there's going to be times where you're taking on something that you're not comfortable with, and it's going to be uncomfortable.
Right. So my personal story is a little bit different. So I succeeded fast because a lot of it was because I had to, because I was a single mom and I needed to have a thriving business to pay my bills. That external motivation pushed me and drove me, because it was like, if I didn't make this successful, I wouldn't have the lifestyle that I wanted now. What I think The trap that I think people get caught up in is not being able to recognize when they have a belief that is holding them back. So they might make a lot of excuses about why they can't succeed. Whether it's, what are some common roadblocks that someone might run up against, just even initially when they're thinking about developing a property?
I mean, one of the most common questions we get is, oh, where am I going to find the money? I can't find the money, so I can't do a deal. So I can't even get started or try.
Yep. That's a limiting belief, right? That's a belief that's like, I don't have what it takes. The money isn't available. The money is available because if you look around and you've helped other developers succeed. So right there's a limiting belief. That's a shift that has to occur. That like, wait a minute, the money's available and I'm going to find it and I have what it takes to find the money.
How would you work someone through that? So they say, okay, I don't have the money. I don't have the connections. I don't have the people with money, so I can't do it. Is there a step-by-step process, or how would you take them to a point where they could maybe believe, if I have a project that works, I will find the money?
There's a step-by-step process, and everyone comes to the table with different limiting beliefs. So I meet everybody where they're at. It starts with trusting the vision that they have. If you have this calling and desire on your heart to do it, there's a reason for that. It's because you need to do it. There's a reason for it, and a person's why has to become bigger and more impactful than their excuses for not doing it. So the first thing I would do if they're stuck in that way is to say, what would this bring to you? So if you were to develop this property, how will it change your life? How will it change the meaning that you are giving to your purpose in your community and the lives that you'd be able to impact by developing this piece of property and changing, this city block? Because where we put our attention, where we focus, that energy just expands. So if you are focused on the reasons why you can't do something, well, you're not going to do it. You're going to run into roadblocks left and right. You're somebody who is bought into their why and believes that and is really focused on making it happen will see this roadblock and go, okay, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to find another way. A person who is not bought into their why, doesn't believe that they can do it, will see the roadblock and they will allow it to stop them.
Yep, that's so true. So like at the beginning of what we talked to everyone about, your purpose, your why, your reasoning for the project needs to be strong. It needs to be clear. And that way, when you do hit the tough times and you hit that roadblock, then you go, oh, well, because of this outcome and what's going to happen as a result, I'm willing to then try and find a way around it, and go, everything's figure outable. And how do we go about doing that? So what's the science behind this? Because it can sound a little woo-woo-y, but I know that there's real science behind that. So maybe some background on and context on that.
Okay. So here's a perfect example. You two have gone car shopping. Everyone listening to this has shopped for a car, probably at some point, right? You shop for a car, you test drive the Audi, you're comparing between the Audi and the Ford. And have you noticed that after you test drive that vehicle and you're thinking about it and you're researching it, you go out on the road and you drive and you're like, oh my God, look at all these Audis. Like, I didn't realize that there were this many Audis out there. How did this, it couldn't have just changed just because you started shopping for an Audi. It's that your brain got focused on the Audi, and now it's the reticular activating system. Now that's what your brain picks up. That's what you see. Like, our brain is so powerful. It's almost scary because a negative thought takes us down a path of negativity. The most simple positive thought takes us towards a path of growth and expansion. And people who really understand the power of their thoughts will be very careful what they think, and they'll achieve a lot of success because they're careful what they think. I actually have one more example. So most people have moved in their adult life, and there's two places most people have to go. They have to drive to the grocery store and they have to drive to the gas station. So you move and you're thinking, okay, what's the best route to get there? Now you're in a new location. You're thinking about the best route, the fastest route when it comes to, traffic, rush hour, things like that. So when you first drive there, you have to consciously think about the turns to make. You have to think about the route. After you've done that route numerous times, you can hop in your car, you're going to the grocery store, you can talk on your phone the entire time, never once think about where you're going, and you show up at the grocery store and you walk in the door. You never gave it a conscious thought. Your brain wired the route to the grocery store. And that's how fast your brain can wire your thoughts, wire your path to success or your path to not meeting your goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a famous quote by Henry Ford who talks.
Yes, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's one of those things where you're gonna essentially validate whatever you think. So if you think that you can't do it, then you're right. You can't do it. But if you think you can do it, you're going to find a way to make it happen. And, I'm not sure, mainly related to motivation, because I think a lot of people end up relying on willpower and motivation to get things done. But to your point, having a powerful why, and even sometimes, as bad as it sounds, like having a negative emotion associated with the alternative outcome, because that's something that when I was looking to transition away from what I was doing before, because my background is engineering and technology, and I wanted to jump into commercial brokerage and investing. And I looked at my life in 20 years. So I saw a project manager that was doing the work that I would have been doing for 20 years. And I just was like, man, I cannot see myself in that position. So there's this negative association with me. And I'm like, I got to find a way to make this work for me. Right. So that motivation for me was like, it's kind of rooted in negativity. But in reality, it's like, that's what drove me to want to do ultimately what I ended up doing. So
you know what? That is a great point. The reason that people create transition in their lives, there's two reasons usually. There's usually an external force that, someone maybe loses their job, they get laid off, something happens in their external world that forces them into that transition, or their current status becomes more uncomfortable than the idea of change. I coach people. People seek coaching when their current status is so uncomfortable. Otherwise, people stay in their safety zone.
And I think it's a common entrepreneur story. Your drive is sometimes from something, or someone made a comment that you're like, what? No, I'm going to go prove you wrong. I mean, same way. There was a reason that I kept plowing forward. The catalyst that made me start my company in 2015, I was able to kind of fast forward it, just like you said, Raphael. And I was in Manhattan Beach, California, and we were around millionaires and billionaires, and I'm looking at them, and they've achieved all of these statuses of success that growing up in small town Ohio, I'm like, oh, if you have all the money, and if you know all the famous people, and you've got all of these things checked, and you've got the mansion on the beach, then that's good, and you'll be happy, and you've achieved it all in life. And quickly realized, I'm like, wait, no one's happy here. They literally have everything that I thought was success. And I realized maybe my ladder is just on the wrong tree, because I don't want what they have. So then my why became stronger of like, I don't know exactly what I want, but I don't want that. And I do know that I enjoy real estate enough that I want to go create multiple businesses from it. But I don't want to end up like that. I want to be filled with purpose and joy, and I want to be passionate about what I'm doing. And I think we have a lot of people who are curious about development for all of those reasons. When they're looking into maybe doing something in their town and that's developing a property and running a business, it's because what they were told to do, the American dream of, hey, go to college, get this great paying job, get the house and the white picket fence. And they're like, that's not actually what I wanted. Like, I want community. I want connection. I want relationships. I want to make a difference. I don't want to be another cog in a wheel or another number at my employer. I want to do something that matters. And I think that's a lot of the people who are very curious and starting to get into development in their communities.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That is, for some of my clients, that's a process I might take them through, is to say, how do you feel every day when you wake up? One of the reasons that I quit my corporate job in 2023 to start coaching was because I used to wake up and just feel heavy. I used to feel the weight of the world on my shoulders, also for personal reasons too. So I made a lot of changes in my personal life. And I thought, I spent a year where I got very curious, and I said, what are the things that are causing me to feel this way, this negative way? And then slowly worked one by one to change that, to change what was happening in my external world so that I could wake up every day and feel peaceful and excited about what I do every day. So that's another great motivator too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to put any words in anyone's mouth or anything, but also the fact that it's like, it's okay to sometimes harness those negative emotions, because sometimes people think, oh, I have all these negative emotions about my current state, or maybe they have in their past, they have these negative emotions attributed to stuff that happened in their life that they're, frustrated about, and they want to force themselves into a new position. It's like, yeah, sometimes it's good to harness those negative emotions to push you forward. You talk about people that, say, oh, you're not going to amount to anything, or, maybe you went through a period of time where you didn't have the resources that now you have. Like, so a lot of those can be drivers for people to push them forward. And I think, I often hear people talk about lamenting about things that happen to them. And I'm like, well, you could look at it two different ways. You could look at it, one, it's like I'm a victim, and there's things that happened in my life that I'm not happy with, and I'm essentially going to just focus in on those and just not really try to change my trajectory based on what had happened. And then you have another person who could say, you know what, that happened to me, but in reality, it made me who I am, and also it's what drives me. So you can dig deep in the well when things are not going your way. You can say, you know what, it doesn't matter what comes in front of me. I'm going to dig deep and make it work.
So you have an incredible amount of resilience and determination. Like, your level of resilience and determination, honestly, it's that's exceptional. So not everyone has that. And so they just stay stuck and they can't figure out how to move forward. And it's because, like, you gave a couple of examples of things that people might hear when they're growing up, or, in their community, those thoughts become beliefs, and people can walk around with beliefs that are very negative about themselves or about what's possible. And then that's where neuro coaching comes in. So if you can't find the resilience and the determination to just do it and to decide, I'm going to let this go. I'm going to let go of what's these thoughts and these beliefs that are no longer serving me, so that I can create a life I want. Some people, it's really hard. And so an example, like a way that I encourage people to try to work through that, is to take a piece of paper, draw a line down the center, write down all of the negative thoughts that you have about what's possible, and about, maybe even there's probably a lot of self-belief that is not helping them, negative belief about themselves. And then on the right side, write the opposing statement, write something that's positive and the opposite of the negative statement, because that's what we want to do, is create because our brain neuroplasticity, our brains wire quickly. And so we can write down positive statements and start to read. You can read those out loud, or you can speak them into like a voice memo on your phone, and start listening to that in the morning, when you wake up, and at night, and that will start the brain rewiring process.
And the positive statements, those are, hey, can we chat for a second? Since you're listening to this podcast, you're already thinking like a developer. You see the potential in your community, and you're ready to do more than just watch from the sidelines. That's exactly why we created the Local Developer Vault. It's a free resource full of tools, templates, and trainings to help you take action. And here's the best part. When you sign up, you'll also get access to our local real estate developer community. It's full of people just like you, who are making real things happen in their neighborhoods. So don't just listen to the stories. Become the next one that we spotlight on our show. The link in the show notes to unlock the vault and join our movement. Maybe not where they're at right now, but where they want to be. They want to believe that this is true.
That's right.
And so by writing it down and then by reading it, I know we had talked previously, and just the voice memo thing, and maybe just play it at night before you fall asleep and let it work in your subconscious. And in the morning when you wake up, and then you can go, wait, then one day you just go, wait, I do have this skill set. I can be a developer. Yes. I can transform my community. I can bring my neighbors together.
Yes, that's how it works. It's amazing. I've seen it happen in so many individuals who've tried this process. The way, and there's one clue to know that you've really hit the nail on the head, is if it feels really uncomfortable to speak the positive statements. If it feels really uncomfortable to speak the positive statements, to even write them down, then you've hit the belief. And that's what needs to unravel so that you can wire in what you want. We're reprogramming our subconscious. Our subconscious runs 95% of our decisions, actions, and behaviors. So that's why a lot of people get stuck looking outward. They see a lot of reasons why they can't succeed, but it's their subconscious that's seeking it, because they've got some bad wiring from their lived experiences.
Definitely. So I guess one question I have is related to how do you make that a conscious thing for you? Because I feel like a lot of people, it's a default setting where as soon as something happens that fits that criteria, whatever you're describing, it's an automated response. So I think the first thing probably you have to do is acknowledge that this is happening to begin with. So is there like a technique that people can, I mean, obviously more so related to, now I've kind of brought it to the forefront, but I don't know if there's anything in particular that you recommend people do outside of just writing those feelings down.
Right. So you're right. So then you have to go one step backwards
Mm-hmm.
before we get to the point where we can write those thoughts down. And that is simply to get curious about yourself. Get curious about why you have the reactions. Why do I have the thoughts that I have? Why do I believe this? So just creating self-awareness. And so sometimes I work with clients that come to me and they know what their thoughts are. They know where they're stuck, but they need help getting to the next level. Some clients come to me and they're stuck and they don't know why. And so we have to work on creating a self-awareness, like a third-party curiosity about themselves without judgment.
And that's where I know people have started to use GPT and different AIs to almost be their therapist or their sounding board to go, hey, like I don't feel comfortable talking to someone else about this. Can you help me walk through? I think honestly, any tool you use that helps you do some reflection and get introspective to go, okay, I have this belief, and there's so many beliefs that I had to dispel from childhood of the smallest things to someone like me in small town Ohio. I can't be a developer. I can't go live in California. I can't go travel the world and go to a different country every year. And by pulling back that layer, and saying, well, why can't I? And instead of I can't, how could I make that happen? Yeah, because then once you start to think about that, then you get curious and like, well, how might that be possible? How might we be able to get that workaround?
And some people might even just start with, where did this come from? Where did this idea come from? Why do I think this? And they have this other person has an entirely different life and has achieved entirely different things. What do they think? Why, just even answering the where, but you don't need to answer the where. Although a lot of people do know instantly where they got ideas, the limiting beliefs that they have.
I couldn't agree more. So you've essentially started to identify what those potential limiting beliefs are by writing things down on paper, and then on the other side talk about ways that you want to be able to improve your thought process behind whatever those limiting beliefs are. What's that next step look like? So let's say I'm an aspiring developer. I keep driving by the building that I've been wanting to develop. It's been sitting decrepit. I want to turn it into a mixed-use building, have retail on the bottom and apartments on top. But I constantly struggle with the imposter syndrome, as they say, regarding like, who am I to take on this particular project? Okay. But I've done the work at this point to identify what those limiting beliefs are, and how do I make those changes so that I can then take the next step into making it work.
Okay, so one trick that I like to use, because I still struggle with imposter syndrome sometimes, because every next level, if you have imposter syndrome, every next level that you get to, those thoughts will come rushing back if you have imposter syndrome. And so what I like to do is I like to say, you use the example of like, who am I? Who am I to do this? Ask yourself, like, where's the evidence to support the negative thoughts that you have about yourself? What does the evidence show in your life? Because 10 times out of 10, the evidence is that you've succeeded, and that the evidence supports the exact opposite of the negative beliefs that you're having. So first, looking at the evidence, then, and I don't know if this would address your question, but it starts with having that goal, this is what you want to have created by the end of the year, and then breaking it down. Start with the end in mind and breaking down the goal into quarterly and monthly and weekly and daily tasks, and just bite-sized chunks, because success does not happen overnight. Not at all. It takes years. Kristi, you mentioned you had to unravel a lot of limiting beliefs. I've been on this journey since 2012. I used to have a fear. I used to think it's not safe for me to speak publicly about anything. I had to rewire my brain. Like, it's safe for you to speak and be seen, Christine. It can be a journey, but it's like one foot in front of the other. It's like picking up the phone and making that phone call. It's the
Yeah, making
simplest
that
task.
most important next step to just go, what can I do to just take one more step forward? And
Exactly.
like you said, if you map it out and then and I've always been one where I have my goals in my head. And I will tell you what, every single goal that I've written down, I've actually achieved. And the power of writing it down, but that friction for me to go, I don't want to write this down. I don't want to track my goals. I don't want to track my quarterly goals and my daily habits. That just seems like I'm better than that. I will tell you what, once I did it, I actually started getting, like, the growth was incredible from there.
There's some neuroscience there too, because when you write it down, there's something about taking your hand and actually writing out a goal that like makes it more permanent in your brain, and you get focused on it because you wrote it down. It stopped being a thought that was just swirling in your head. But then tracking too, when you track the steps that you take, your brain sees what you're doing. Again, what we're focusing on, you're showing your brain that you're doing this action, and your brain is like, oh, well, this is good. You're taking these steps and you're starting to get results, and you get focused on taking steps instead of just swirling with what thinking about what you should do.
Yeah, and that belief sets in and you go, oh, I'm making progress. I'm getting there. Now
Yes.
I believe even more that I can do it and I can achieve that. And even the smallest thing, like if I go to my daily tasks and I look at it when I'm ready to turn the computer off and I go, well, I said I was going to do that, and it will get me to go back because I like to check boxes. So I will get back and I will go do the thing because it was there. So it's like that extra motivation daily as well to be like, oh, okay. I mean, I said I was going to do it, and I'm a person who does what she says she's going to do. So I guess I need to go do that before I turn it off.
Okay. And you just said something very interesting. Your belief, your identity is, I'm a person who does what I say I'm going to do. So that is part of your identity. Like that drives you. And so you're taking action to meet this identity that you have for yourself. So change, like when I work with my clients and we're rewiring some bad neural pathways, like they're shifting at the identity level from becoming someone who, in your example, like I'm from small town Ohio, who am I to have 2 homes and to build a real estate empire? There are people from your town that have that identity. I'm from small town Ohio and I can't do that. But you changed your identity to say, I can do whatever I want and I'm going to decide what it's going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and also too, I mean, to your you had kind of alluded to it at the beginning that you can't eat an elephant in one bite. So the idea that you're doing a big goal, if you were to just look at that big goal and say, I mean, there's no way, because you don't really think about the steps that it takes to get there. And so, one of the most profound concepts that I learned when I was, in my early 20s was this book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and it talked about the idea of small positive actions add up over time, add up to huge results. So all it takes is you doing one thing a day. So like if you make, as an example, if you're in a sales role, you're making 10, 15 calls a day, extrapolate that over a year, you maybe talk to 1,000 people. From those 1,000 people, now you can work backwards until you get to what you ultimately want to do. So, you realize very quickly that these people who have accomplished great things did so over a long period of time by having specific habits that they followed on a daily basis. And so, just because you yourself aren't at that level yet doesn't mean you can't get there. It just means that you need to change the way you do things on a daily basis to get there. And that's really an empowering thing. At least for me, it was, where it was like, oh, it's not it's not you just being blessed by something that drops out of the sky. It's that I actually have command over my life, and I can drive whatever results I want to achieve in my life by taking action consistently over time.
Yes, exactly. You recognize, like, the word in the field of psychology is agency. You recognize that you have agency over your life in every facet. And there's something so powerful from taking that big goal and breaking it down into just these little bite-sized chunks. When your brain gets focused on like just making the phone call, driving down the road, making that contact, that's manageable. Like, you can rack up these small wins, and the small wins build confidence.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's a book too I would recommend, The Checklist Manifesto. It talks about that exact concept, where they highlight all these very complicated processes, and when they implemented just a simple checklist, the efficacy or how often mistakes were made were reduced immensely. So they talk about like the checklist, so the pre-flight checklist, that helped reduce the amount instances of errors by like over 100%. Same with surgical errors where they leave tools inside of people. It's like if you have a pre-surgery checklist, you're able to mitigate that issue almost 100%. It's unbelievable. So to that point, if you have a list of tasks that you're going to perform a day, now you can actually, you see it and now you can execute versus just keeping it in your head and it can just kind of float away when you start getting it too. So.
And one thing I'd like to add is that there's been a lot of research on how humans build habits. And the recommendation is to start with a 10% improvement, which is, so if someone breaks their task list down, and for the first time ever, they're working with a task list and they put 10 things on it, that could be intimidating. So start with 2. Start with 2 things, or what would be 20%, right? Start with maybe just 1 thing a day that you can do, and it'll build quickly.
So let's talk about the next phase in the process now. So you've kind of gotten to a point where you yourself are starting to believe that this is something you can actually do.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, let's say in this example, we've gone down the street and we've identified a building and we decide, you know what, let's go ahead and put this thing under contract and let's make it work, right? So you start going through the process, you get all the team members in place to be able to handle the buying of the building, financing of the building, and construction people to start walking through and give you perspective on what the construction budget is. You ultimately close on the building and now the real work begins. So everyone's really excited when things are just getting started because it's this ethereal type of idea where it's like, oh, this is going to look great once it's all done. But now you're starting to get into the meat and potatoes of the construction process, and inevitably problems start to occur. I guess, how do you work with people regarding that resiliency piece when things aren't going your way? How do you manage that without folding in those difficult times?
So I think there's 3 tactics to use. So number 1, get dialed in again on your why. Remember why you're doing this. Get super focused on bringing your vision into reality. Number 2, accept. So this is kind of a 2-step. Accept the fact. Go into it knowing there's going to be problems, but and then look for evidence in your life that shows you can handle it. Because anytime I've ever worked with someone who feels just down and frustrated about something that's happening in their life, they have a long list of times that they have succeeded and overcome something that didn't go their way. So the brain is wired to keep us, our brains are wired to keep us safe. And anything that is outside of our safety zone, our brain is going to throw up red flags and make us feel afraid to move forward. This is a carryover from millennia ago. It's not this safety feature of our brain to keep us safe. It's not really serving us much in the modern world, but we haven't evolved past it. Well, we're starting to evolve past it, let's say. But recognize, okay, my brain's trying to keep me safe. My brain is focusing on everything that's going wrong and making me want to stop. But look at, this is the reason that I'm doing it. Remind yourself why you're doing it. Remind yourself that you have what it takes by looking at the evidence for everything, all the little things that you have traversed in the past.
Yep. No, that's great. And is there often a community piece as well where you kind of lean on people that, not necessarily lean on people, but you can maybe talk to people who've done something similar? I know Kristi helps a lot of people across the country that are taking on these types of projects. And sometimes it's just nice to hear, hey, like, people go through this stuff, because if you've gone through something for the first time, it does feel like the world's ending because you don't have a frame of reference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Community is so important. It is so helpful for people to understand that what they're going through is normal. So anytime that your fear can be normalized and you realize, wait a minute, this isn't just me, this happens to everybody, like, that alone can take the pressure off.
100%. I mean, that's a big driver for why having this podcast. We have people on that are sharing their stories, and they're not straight like, great, it was a perfect project the whole way. There's challenges that they overcame, and hearing the different stories and the resilience just really does make you go, oh, okay, I'm not in this alone. Yes. I remember early in my career, when we were doing, at the time, like 30 Family Dollar deals a year. And I remember there was a public hearing. We were in Rialto, California. No, it wasn't a public hearing. We were at a city meeting, and they were making us underground the overhead power lines. So we were undergrounding power and telecom. Well, power alone is 400 a linear foot to put underground, and telecom was 150 a linear foot per provider. So we're looking at like $700 a linear foot for a very tight budget and project already. And I was just like, wait, we have already spent close to like somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 to get the deal to a point where all of a sudden the city issued us a condition of approval that sure, we'll approve your project in zoning, but you have to do this. And we're like, oh my gosh, you just added hundreds of thousands of dollars onto our project. That just killed it. And so we're thinking, we have lost all this money. We have lost all this time. We said we were going to do the deal. We've got money baked in with the property owner that's non-refundable. And I just remember looking at Vasanti and I was so worked up and anxious. And she's like, it's fine. We'll figure it out. She's like, there are paths and ways around this to make it happen. I'm like, what do you mean? And it's because she had 30 years of experience and proof that we're going to figure it out. So when you do hit those, and to me, honestly, just seeing her calm and her presence about that made me go, okay, like you clearly have more experience than me. So if you think that we can find a different path forward and make it work, okay, I trust you. Let's go figure it out.
Can I point something else out too? So she had figured it out. So it didn't frighten her, but for you, it was the first time you were met with this particular. So again, it's the first time. So your brain was throwing up all kinds of red flags because your brain didn't have evidence that it would be possible. So even just recognizing that the first time someone goes through or does anything, it's scary. I mean, your brain is wired to make you want to stay small and stay safe. But there's just a decision that you go, I'm going to just face this. Like, I'm just going to go through this. It's going to be okay.
No, I couldn't agree more. And it's oftentimes easier said than when you're actually going through it. But to your point, it really is important to reinstate that, is that people have, for many years, have gone through the same thing. So there have been scenarios out there where people have overcome these obstacles, and there's ways that you yourself can do the same. So yeah, I mean, I think that's really good perspective to have with our audience, because as we had mentioned, Christine, I mean, a lot of the people that listen to this podcast in particular are aspiring developers. So those individuals who are working a 9-to-5 and they want to take on their first development project. Some of them have been maybe in the residential space for a while, done some flips, maybe have some single family homes, and they want to buy their first commercial property and look to do some form of like adaptive reuse or maybe ground up construction. And so these are mindset shifts for people ages, right? So I think having this type of perspective from a more general standpoint that can be applied more granularly by people can be a benefit.
Awesome. So, and I know you gave us a resource that we've got in the vault, and it's 7 questions every aspiring developer needs to answer. So guys, go into the vault and check that out, because it really tactically breaks down and helps you think through. And it's a great tool to use in combination with our vision resource to go, what do I want to do and why, and really pulling out those triggers and emotions. So when it does get tough and you realize there's complexity here, I want this, I want to keep pushing forward, and here's the tools. So we do have that. And then if people want to learn more, what's a good way for them to follow along or reach out?
So in the resource that you recommended, there's a link to check out my website, which is coachingwithchristine.com. I'm on Instagram as Christine the Brain Coach. And there's also a link to directly schedule like a free 30-minute chat with me, just to explore, what would coaching look like, and maybe, maybe they want to go move forward, maybe not, but maybe they might even understand what the beliefs are, that we could unearth what some of those beliefs are that are holding them back. And I have a newsletter. I have a mindset newsletter. If you don't mind, maybe I can give you guys the link that you could drop in the show notes too. Because
we'll include all that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Yep. That would be it.
Yeah. No, we'll make sure to include that. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, please go in the description. We'll make sure to get those links included below. And if you guys are listening to this in a podcast format, again, go to the description and we'll have those links available so you can access and maybe schedule some time with Christine to see if she can help you with whatever limiting beliefs you may have. So, well, Christine, greatly appreciate your time as always. This is really insightful, and it's good to reinforce the ideas of mind state, because I think oftentimes we get caught up in our day-to-day and we allow some of those thoughts to creep in, and it's always important for us to kind of reinforce the idea that we ourselves are capable of immense things, and it's not there's nothing that can hold you back outside of just your own mental state. So
That's right. Success starts and ends with mindset. Yes.
I couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm excited for you two and what you're doing and how this group, is going to change the face of so many cities and towns in America and make so many places such a better place to live. So we need more of that.
Yeah. We appreciate it. And this mission obviously is one that Kristi and I are both passionate about, and we're looking forward to seeing what comes of this podcast. And ultimately, we'll have more meetings and get-togethers as well in the future to be able to foster more, inspiration for development across the country.
Awesome.
Again, Christine, thank you so much for your time. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It makes a huge impact in our ability to reach a broader audience. Along with that, if you guys are watching or listening to this in a podcast format, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. Again, it helps broaden our reach, so more and more people who are looking to get into commercial real estate development or any type of adaptive reuse and other types of ground-up construction projects have a resource that they can go to and hopefully be able to take on their first and subsequent projects thereafter. So thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.